The question is, how do you define wealth? Is wealth your ability to go to the store and buy a garment, some shoes, a car, a flat screen TV? Is that really wealth? Wealth does not start from access to material things. Wealth starts with your possession of knowledge. If we don't possess knowledge that guides us into how to create wealth, then we'll talk about wealth, but we'll never have it because we don't have the requisite knowledge that would allow us to be a creator of wealth.
Seems like everybody's infatuated by the term black wealth these days. As we know, the black wealth gap is huge. It's enormous. Some studies say that your average white family has approximately $144,000 versus your average black family's wealth or net worth of a mere $11,000. Now, those numbers vary from different studies. Everybody's studying it these days. It's all in vogue. But one of the people who have been talking about this for decades, like decades upon decades, is the Minister Louis Farrakhan, who we just saw in that clip there. The leader of the Nation of Islam. You could arguably say that the Nation of Islam has the placeholder, the beginnings, the markings of all things black wealth, except for maybe Marcus Garvey, and a few others, W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, but Marcus Messiah Garvey definitely have a place on this. And if you go back and trace the roots of the Nation of Islam, they lead back to Marcus Garvey. So I figured if we're going to talk about black wealth, why not go to the source? And right now, that source, I would say, is Minister Louis Farrakhan. So if you want to hear what I have to say, come on with me to the other side. Welcome to the Finance Roll Show. I'm Kamari Ellis, your host. I'm a tax accountant. I solve tax problems all day long. I'm a former stock portfolio manager, and I am a recovering financial advisor. So on this show, we talk about all things money: stocks, taxes, business, economics, real estate, black wealth, all things geared to helping the black community increase their overall knowledge of money and their financial IQ. So today, let's talk about Minister Louis Farrakhan's questions. How do you define wealth? And I'm commentating on this, so I want to remix it a little bit, and I don't really think it's a far stretch. I would say, what are your thoughts, or how do you define black wealth? Because we know Minister Farrakhan was talking to a black audience 9 times out of 10. So how do you define black wealth? So, but before we go any further, let's define wealth. All right, so let me read that real quick from my handy dandy phone right here. So wealth is the abundance of valuable material possessions, abundant supply or profusion, all property that have economic utility. That's what Merriam-Webster has as wealth. Since we're here, let's look up the etymology of wealth. So wealth is an old English word from way, way back in the day. It means prosperity and abundance of possessions of riches, or weal, W-E-A-L, weal, which is also an analogy for health. All right, and so let's talk about health. The etymology of that as well is wholeness, being whole, sound or well. All right, so that's from like old proto-dramatic terminology. I'm sure nobody cares about it, but the reason I like to go to the definitions and then the etymology of words is so we could all start from one place and all be on one accord. And let's go back to what the word really means. Now, when you look at the etymology of this, is wellness, right? And when you hear the minister talk about buying material objects, I would say, I hope you would say too, that there's a bit of a disconnection there from what the word was intentionally meant to mean and what things are kind to mean these days, or what things appear to mean these days. So again, when you break down these definitions and etymology, it seems like we're far way off, right? In my opinion, my humble opinion, when we're talking about black wealth, most people talk about it from a very materialistic standpoint. When I talk about black wealth, I'm talking about the state of the community. I'm talking about our overall well-being, that 360-degree wholeness, right? How are we with our health? How are we with our mental? How are we with our education? And honestly, when you go back and you look at this, most of these things, if not all of these things, have been major tenets of the Nation of Islam. I mean, so Elijah Muhammad came out with the book, How to Eat to Live. And so this was in the 50s or 60s, somewhere around there, but it was a long time ago. So, I mean, Dick Gregory talks about this as well. But if we're talking about wellness and we're talking about health and we're talking about the holistic view of this, health is wealth, wealth is health, right? They can't be disconnected. You can't separate the mind from the body. And if we're totally focused on the money aspect of things, how long will that actually last when you don't have a solid vessel? Vessel meaning the body. So you do want to eat to live. Now, I got some work to do on that. I'm getting there. I'm working on it. But as we talk about this movement that's been created called Black Wealth, I want to talk about it from a holistic view. Now, obviously, we all have to consume things, right? Food, clothing, shelter, transportation, right? A few trinkets here or there. But again, it seems like the symbols of wealth have been morphed into fancy cars, have morphed into fancy clothes, have morphed into fancy outings to restaurants. Mind you, these clothes, cars, and restaurants, 9 times out of 10 are not owned by people that are black. So, in essence, we are taking our money out of our community and then spending it with some other manufacturer, some other retail establishment, some other money center that doesn't necessarily support the black agenda, the black agenda's culture, the black agenda's community. But we're still kind of thinking about it in the guise of black wealth. So that's a major gap in what I think Minister Farrakhan is talking about, what I think Marcus Garvey was talking about, what I think W.E. Du Bois was talking about, what I think Malcolm X was talking about, what I think Martin Luther King was talking about, when they all gave us instructions on maintaining our economic stability or developing economic stability, whichever one you want to go with. Now, one of the most gangsterous things the minister said in that clip, that very short clip, was that wealth does not start from the possession of materialistic things. Wealth starts from the possession of knowledge. And I'm pretty sure many of you are saying, well, what knowledge? That's very vague. Can we get more instruction on that? Sure, I got instruction for you. I think the one thing that we can do, since we're talking about black wealth, is study black culture. And not just black culture from an Americanized standpoint, but study black culture from an African diaspora standpoint. What's culture? The language, the arts, the customs, the architecture, the food, the rituals, the religions, right? Start studying those things, right? And listen, I get it. Some of y'all don't want to talk about anything African, so look at other aspects of Americanized black life, because black folks in the South are different from black folks in the North. Black folks in the West are different from black folks in the East, right? Start looking at some of the nuances. Start figuring out what's truly of value to everybody in the whole, okay? But I still would go back to religion, culture, literature, clothing, customs, holidays, rituals, things like that from a diaspora standpoint. Knowledge of economics. Study economics. I know a lot of times we shy away from the quote-unquote money subjects because we think they're hard, but economics is something that could always be used and always is applicable. Now, what is economics? Economics is the study of scarce resources. And so if we're talking about wealth and we're talking about building a better way of life, a better quality of life for people in the black community, more people are going to have to start understanding what economics are, what drives things, what makes things of value, what happens when you have a whole lot of things on the market and the demand for it drops, or when you have a whole lot of things on the market and supply for it increases. Now, those are just a couple of economic terms. I don't want to go too deep in value, but what I'm saying is we need to understand that readily all the time if we're truly going to be serious about building black wealth for ourselves, our families, and our communities. A knowledge of business. Now, I know some of y'all are probably saying, but economics and business, aren't they the same? They're related. They're like cousins, maybe brothers or sisters, but they're not always the same. Not always. All the times they are, not to be confused, but start to understand what it takes to run a business. Start understanding what you need to bring to the marketplace, how you need to position it in the marketplace, how you need to market it to people to buy things from you, how you need to pay people to help you build these things or provide these things. It's a part of business. No one goes into business by themselves and makes a whole lot of money, right? However, you can go into business and partner with other people. Sometimes they call those employees. Sometimes they call them independent contractors. But you got to have enough either money or charisma or mission to get people to start working on a common thing to build it up and be great. One of the greatest things I think that we've seen built in this country amongst black folks is Ebony and Jet, John Johnson. I did a review on it. You can check it out somewhere over here. I'll click to it. And I'll also put it in the description here. Ebony and Jet has a legacy. It's here. That's an understanding of business and economics. All right. Other thing you need to understand is law. Law governs everything in this land, from contracts to salaries to real estate transaction. It's in it all. So I would say have an understanding of culture, black culture, have an understanding of economics, have an understanding of business, and have an understanding of law. Those are the things I would suggest we have when we go back to what the minister gave us as instructions, that we start possessing knowledge so we can start building wealth, real wealth, wealth that will change the lives of our children who go to school, who actually have quality books, quality computer systems, quality trips, quality teachers, right? All of those things matter, y'all. All of those things matter. So I say all this to say, let's redefine ourselves for ourselves, as Dr. Maulana Karenga has taught us, and let's start defining wealth for ourselves. So here's the question. How do you define wealth, black wealth, for yourself? Now, if you've enjoyed this video and you get value out of these shows, do me a favor, subscribe, like, share. The algorithm a lot of times needs to see that people are engaged in the content in order to share with more people. So do me a favor, like, comment, and share, and I'll see you the next time. Kamari Ellis.